Hey guys, so I wanted to show you how to make a raindrop. So I'm going to start out with a fresh canvas. And I'm just going to go to sketching, and the brush is soft pastel. And I think I worked like a 15-hour day today, so this will be fairly quick. And then I'm going to get some sleep. But as always, thank you guys so much for watching the videos. I appreciate you. Alright, I just wanted to give it some sort of texture. Okay, so I'm just going to make a new layer above that. And I'm going to we'll just do Procreate Pencil. Alright, so the first thing I'll do is just make a circle. And then I'll hold it so that it snaps. Alright, so we have our circle there. And I'm just going to shade in sort of the upper left half of it. And I'm going to shade it in. You can see I'm doing it kind of crudely, because I'm going to use the smudge tool to really smooth it out and give it a nice gradient. I did this on a new layer, right? Yeah, I did. Sometimes I forget. One thing you don't want to do is draw on your base layer. You never want to draw on your base layer unless you're really trying to do it on purpose. But you just want to maintain maximum editability. I just wanted to say that word twice. Okay, so this is my really crude shading. It actually looks like a golf ball with this texture. So now I'm gonna select the smudge, and first I'm just gonna use graffiti. You know what? We'll just use a soft airbrush for the whole thing. So I'm just gonna use a soft airbrush and smudge, and I'm just gonna smudge this. I'm just gonna smudge in the direction that I kind of made the strokes. So sort of like back and forth. And this just sort of pushes everything I made and just kind of smooths it out, because you really want that smooth gradient. Not always. I mean, I guess you can do it with a rough gradient, but I kind of like a nice smooth gradient. I'm gonna go back to Procreate Pencil, and then I'm just gonna darken up. I'm just gonna darken up some of what I did. Just make it a little darker. Then I'm gonna go back to the airbrush smudge. And as you can see, smudge is also really good for blending and shading as well. In the last video, I actually drew him with holding two, like, not teardrops, but two like water droplets, kind of like the ants in A Bug's Life. If you remember that movie, there's one part where they're like drinking water and they're holding these, water droplets, and I've always really loved the way that looked. I just thought it was always really cool to be able to show something holding water. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go to the airbrush itself, and I'm just going to airbrush in So basically I'm just trying to like really make this gradient nice and smooth. So that's pretty much all I'm doing. Is just you don't ever want to see the edges of your gradient. So by lightly going over the whole thing, I'm just sort of making everything nice and blended and nice and smooth. And if you can see little dark areas like that, like you can see this area is a little darker, this area is a little darker. And after a while you'll really get an eye for seeing those bits. So I'm just going to use smudge, and I'm just going to just kind of go over them a little bit and just sort of smudge back and forth until you can't really see them that much. I'm going a little overboard, but that's my curse. Everything has to be perfect. So I'm just bringing this down a little bit. I'm bringing a little bit of the shading down, just smudging it down along the bottom as well. So we have this one light spot here. So that's where the light is gonna come from here. I'm gonna make a white spot here, and this is actually where the light comes through and it's lighting up this part of the water droplet. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take my soft brush again, eraser, and I'm just gonna lighten up kind of a circular spot here. So that's where the light will be sort of condensed. And this is actually really fun to make eyes with too, because eyes are very similar. Like if I was to make an eye out of this shape, it looks kind of cool. And it's wet as well, so it kind of has a lot of the similar glares and things like that. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a layer underneath that, and I'm going to take my soft airbrush, and this whole time I'm using like a dark gray. I'm not using complete black. I'm using like a dark, warmer, charcoal grayish color. So now that I'm underneath this layer, let me make sure that I'm on the right layer. Yeah, so I'm here. So I'm just going to use my airbrush, and I'm going to airbrush the shadow. So if the light comes here and it's focusing here, which means that this is like a dome. So this is the shadow that's the shadow is caused by the actual water droplet. And you can even you can see it as I start drawing it. It just kind of, it gives it that nice depth, that nice 3D look. That might be a little too dark there. Sometimes you have to be careful with just using the airbrush. But I'll just go back to smudge, and I'll just sort of smudge out, in the direction from the lighter area. That's how I'll just smudge that out. Okay. I think that's pretty good. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make the airbrush really small, and using this shadow area, I'm going to make it dark right along the edge of that water droplet. And I'm using really, really light strokes. I'm never pressing very hard, like it's very, very soft. I notice a lot of people have issues with their Apple Pencil tips, their nibs. I actually use a paper like, I'm going to take my smudge and I'm just going to smudge that. I'm just going to, just sort of blend what I just did, just a little bit. But I use a paper like screen protector, and I changed my nib for the first time in 5 years, I just got the Paperlike screen protector about maybe like 7 or 8 months ago, and I actually had to change the tip because I hadn't changed it in since I've got the iPad in 2016. But I don't know, my nib is fine, but I don't think I pressed that hard. You shouldn't be pressing too hard on your Apple screen. If you need to press hard, then change the pressure setting in the brush or in the iPad or Procreate. Just play with the pressure sensitivity, because you shouldn't have to press so hard, and you shouldn't be running out of the tips, unless they made the newer iPads with really cheap nibs, the new Apple Pencils. All right, so where were we? So I'm going to go back to Procreate Pencil. Where is that at? There it is. So I'm going to go back to Procreate Pencil, and I'm actually going to go to black, all the way to black. And I'm going to go back up to my my water droplet layer. And I'm just going to make it, do I want to make it black there? I haven't really drawn one of these in a while. So what I'm going to do is, I'm actually going to make it black here. So I'm just darkening up this side with the let's see how that looks. It doesn't look too bad. And now I'm just going to smudge it out a little bit. As you can see, I really like the smudge tool. I just really like to smudge, because it really makes everything cohesive, because it's like things can start to look a bit robotic when they're a little too crisp. You know, it's like the difference between something hand-drawn and then something made with like vectors. It's just a very different look. And I kind of like the hand-drawn look, so that's why I don't really work in vectors. Plus, Adobe Illustrator is quite annoying to me. Okay, so let's get to a bit of the fun part. So, one of the really fun parts is creating the light, of course. So I'm going to go on a layer above, and we're going to use white. And we'll use, I guess we'll just use Procreate Pencil again. I'll try to stick with that. So since this is the light here, I'm going to make that really bright. That spot. I'll make it a little bigger. Okay, so we made that spot really bright. So now I'm going to take my soft brush, and I'm actually going to put it underneath this. I'm not really sure why, but it feels like it should go underneath. So I'm going to go really lightly. I'm going to put some white here. So that light is hitting here, and it's being concentrated right there. So also what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to this layer, the shadow, and I'm going to erase. So almost like the light is coming through, but it's also bouncing on the shadow. So I'm also going to erase some here. Let me make sure I'm on the right layer. Yeah, I am. So I'm just going to erase some as though the light is bouncing through. Let me smudge this back a little bit. I don't want it to really stretch around. I want it to be a sort of round shape. I'm going to take a little bit of my white, and I'm just going to add it to that layer as well. So I'll just add it right here, just so it's sort of shining through. Okay. I think that's looking pretty good. All right, let's see what other fun things we can do here. I mean, I'm kind of liking that. Sometimes there's other little things you can do to make it look good. So first, we'll go back to the Procreate pencil, and let's see what happens when if I add a kind of a white. Let's see how that looks. Doesn't really add much to it. That's what happens if I don't do something, if I haven't done something in a while, then I'll just experiment and just see what looks good, just see what looks nice. We'll do my patented jelly bean. Let's try that out. So I'm going to use a graffiti brush, which is just like a, it's just like a regular paintbrush. But I'm going to go to 30%. And let's see what this looks like. Oh, that's still too bright. We'll go to 12%. See what that looks like. It kind of makes it, that kind of gives it like a surface like it's a hard plastic or something like that, which is interesting. That's usually what I do if I'm making eyes or something like that. I make some sort of, pattern on it. It's interesting. But I think I kind of like, let's see what happens if I smooth out this guy. Let's see if that looks better. So I'm just using the smudge on, soft brush again. Since we have everything else smoothed out, let's see what that looks like. It's not bad. Let's see, maybe let's try. Maybe there's another light source that's pink. Let's see what that looks like if I sort of add in another light source here. Like some other kind of light is shining on. It's kind of interesting. But anyway. Oops, I didn't mean to copy that. But there's a lot you can do. You can just use I'll go back to my graffiti brush and maybe just do like something like that. Something like that. Oh, that looks weird. I think this looks the best. And it always looks better. The darker it is behind this light color, that actually makes it look the best. So even if I make it darker back here, it's just gonna make that white really pop. You obviously can't go too dark. It's just it's just a water droplet, but the more you make that white pop, the more it gives it, that depth. Let's see what happens if we want to make it. We'll make it purple. Let's see what happens if we make it purple. We'll add a little more purple here. Let's see what it looks like. Make a little bit of purple out here because that's what's bouncing. The light is bouncing through. But anyway, just having a little bit of fun. But our water droplets are kind of an easy way to just kind of practice your shading and practice your values and just have some fun with lighting. Just try out a lot of different things. You can try things in different positions. Try light hitting it from different ways and things like that. Try different colors coming through. But it's really important to just kind of practice and play around and just have fun with it. And drawing a water droplet is a really fun exercise because once you get the hang of it, it's pretty easy. And visually, it just looks really cool. So yeah, hopefully you guys like that. Sorry I couldn't do a real long one, but I need to get some sleep. So yeah, I really appreciate you guys watching, and hopefully you found this tutorial useful. Be sure to check me out on Instagram at drugfreedave, on YouTube at youtube.com/drugfreedave, and also, if you'd like, you can join my private Facebook group, Procreate Tutorials, and you can look me up on Facebook, and then you can find my private Facebook group. And there I really kind of help artists. Like I give critiques, I post tutorials, and I just try to help artists because there's on a lot of groups I see people posting artwork and asking for advice. And sometimes it's really bad advice, and sometimes the artwork needs to be critiqued. Instead of just people saying how good they are, it's good for art to be critiqued. So it's a good place for that as well. It's definitely constructive criticism. So yeah, I will see you guys in the next video.